and the photography was incredible. And it was really before Details was known.
So then how did you make your way from New York to the West Coast?
I started to think about what I was interested in next. And really, I felt like I love photography, but I started to become more and more interested in film and movement. So I wanted to figure out how I could get into film. And, I wasn't sure how that would happen, but there's a photographer in Los Angeles, Lauren Greenfield, who I was sort of obsessed with. And she is a documentary style photographer. So she's photojournalist, really, and fine art photographer. She's kind of everything because she evolved into a director. I guess she was always a director, but not really known for being a director. And I was fortunate enough to be at a time in my life where I just had nothing holding me back. I hadn't really, fallen in love yet, and I didn't have a child, and I was really free to just do whatever I needed to do to dive into that. So a few things happened in between where I did meet someone and fall in love with them, and they happened to be in California. So it sort of sealed the deal.
Perfect.
I was like, fine. But basically I started looking for jobs, and Lauren had an opening to be a studio manager. And I knew I wanted to get to California. I had just met my husband, Chris, and we were dating, and it just seemed like meant to be. And I really pressed and emailed Lauren and Frank. Frank's her husband that she's worked with for many years. They're incredible collaborators, and they're just these, there's definitely going to be a book about the two of them at some point in history.
Oh, yeah?
They're just, they're inseparable, except when she's working. But for the most part, career-wise, she totally leans on him. And so far, it's really done her well. They're cool, but they're definitely, he's more, they're both really highly intellectual, but at the same time, really free. And they met each other at Harvard, I think. And when you hang out with them, it's, you're always going to walk away, with the story and having learned something, and they're super awesome. But so I got a job with them, and it was at a point where Lauren was, it was 2008, I want to say, so 2009. So yeah, big crash, like big market crash in the phone, basically.
Right.
And what I learned there, Frank always said this, he's like, Lauren, motion makes motion. And you have to keep going and shooting and doing. So even if it's not, some kind of advertising job or some personal documentary project you're working on, go and shoot stuff. And he's right. It's funny because I think one day we had an agency call up and said, we'd like to look at some artwork, existing artwork. And it ended up that some of the things she had shot of like a soccer team, for kids soccer team, ended up like being in the running for like a Gatorade commercial or something like that, where she was just sort of taking the day to like, hey, let me just keep shooting and what inspires me. And
I love that. It's like when you follow your inspiration and just, do your thing, whatever that is, it's like more of that or success, or I don't know what it, some sort of success follows and more of it comes to you in a way.
It's that momentum. And it's so true. And it's really so important with everything that's going on right now, while we all feel like we're at a standstill, just to keep doing things that that we're feeling, because it might be a different feeling, right? It might be something where you're like, oh, maybe you'll even feel like, oh, this is wrong or bad. But at the end of the day, you're going to understand what it means in the future, and what it could have done for you. And, you see that in art and you see it in music. Like some of the most beautiful things come about when people are struggling, or when they're having trouble understanding something, or, so I love that idea of like motion makes motion, or momentum. It's so true. We just have to keep going and doing something, even if it's not that perfect thing.
Yes, and that's so hard for so many of
So
us
hard.
perfectionist type people to just say, it's okay if it's crappy or whatever. Like I just make, or if you're a creator, create whatever it is, but do your thing, even if it's not going to be like the best thing ever. Because you'll get to the best thing ever if you keep making stuff.
I mean, or it could be a stepping stone. Like maybe you're not going to find it within that part of your journey, but like it could be the stepping stone to something later. And I've always seen little bits of things from my past that I'm like, that's why that happened. Like that totally gave me the skills to do this, or, there's always a reason for things. But which brings me, I started working with Lauren and Frank, and Lauren meets this woman, Jackie. She got an assignment. It was either Elle or, I want to say Marie Claire, a magazine, a women's magazine. And they asked her to go and photograph this party that they were having for Donatella Versace. And it was like all of her number one clients. So, and that's Lauren's themes throughout her creative career have been youth and beauty and wealth. So
all the good things,
all the saccharine, you can't help but, want to stare. So, she goes to this party, and she's also a great bonder. She can go to any kind of environment, and, she can speak to people and they immediately feel tied to her. She's got a great way about her, which is an important skill when you're a documentary photographer. Yeah. So she meets Jackie at this party. She's one of Donatella's number one clients and lives in Florida. And she says, if you ever come into Florida, come over and see my house. We're building this beautiful house right now. And she sort of brags a little bit and tells her it's how big it is. It's like, I think 70,000 square feet or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Lauren is intrigued, obviously, and was doing another assignment in Florida. And during her downtime, called Jackie and said, hey, mind if I come by your house? And she gets to the house, and there's 7 kids. And this is her old house. It turns out she's building like one of the biggest houses in America. There's 7 children. She's married to a man who's quite a bit older than her, and they have a very unique relationship. The banter between them is something to hear. So she comes back and is just basically saying, I think this is a movie. I don't think this is just a photo shoot. There's something there. And started to look into producers, and we initially hired a few people to produce the first few legs of it. And then after a while, we just came to the conclusion that I could do this for her, and I ended up producing it, and it ended up turning into the Queen of Versailles film, where she followed Jackie Siegel, and Jackie being part of the 1% during the economic downturn and mortgage crisis, and Jackie starting to lose the biggest house in America that she was building. So
that was fascinating. Just fascinating.
So it turned into a story about what happens to the 1% in the American dream when everything starts imploding that way. And the thing that made it really fascinating was the fact that there were, as Lauren would describe it, there was the upstairs, downstairs. So there was Jackie and her family, and she came from a very poor family. So this was unique in itself to show someone relatively rags to riches, and she was a beauty queen. So there are all these things like social contract, where she's basically, that's her currency, if you want to say that. And then there's all of the nannies and the people that work on the property who were actually going through similar problems. Losing their home and things. So you got to see this dynamic of what it was like for all these different kinds of people.
And the movie did really well.
It did really well. So we ended up thinking that it was just going to be this little thing. And in all honesty, I think like the first time that Lauren discussed it, we were all like, why is Lauren fascinated with Jackie, what's
the story here?
She had this sense, and then it evolved into that. And I think for a little while, when things hit and they started we started filming, and Jackie was saying, we have to ground the jets because the bankers are saying we can't fly the jets, that they're basically, she said in the film that they're circling like vultures over top of.
Right. And I wondered, watching the film, did she get the permission, blanket permission, like, we're going to film you no matter what happens? Because I feel like some of the stuff in that movie, Jackie and her husband might not have wanted in there. So how did she get the permission to just film even stuff that was not, didn't make them look the greatest?
I think it started out on such a small scale, and there was an enormous amount of trust. And initially they signed releases. They all signed releases. So as the film went on and evolved into something, I think, a bit bigger than everybody expected, that's where it's at, that they had, entrusted Lauren with their story, and they signed it. So there we were.
And were they happy about the film, or were they upset?
I think Jackie's a showwoman. Like, Jackie loves that, and I think she likes any kind of press that way. David a little bit less, and I think David more or less felt like it was Jackie's project when we all started shooting, and that he would just sort of be in the shot once in a while. And he was not as happy. But the things he wasn't happy about were things that, it was things that he said personally on camera. So
he can't be too mad.
I don't debate it too much.
And then the film made the whole festival circuit. I mean, did they come out to promote it at all, or how did that work?
So, well, when we found out that it was, we were going to be at Sundance in 2012, it was super exciting. And then found out that it was going to open Sundance. So it ended up opening with Robert Redford introducing Lauren, which was so exciting. I mean,
wow, I have goosebumps right now.
It's just one of those things where it was so unexpected, and we worked so hard on it. It was 5 people driving around in a minivan. We're not talking about,
wow.
But 5, I have to say, like, super talented people. It was a great team of people. We go to Sundance, did not expect it. And then I think within 8 hours, Magnolia made an offer for the film, which was very fast. Very fast. So, yeah, it ended up being on Netflix, and I think it's still on a lot of must watch. I mean, I know which is kind of weird, the Tiger King. I'm having these lists of other films you might like if you like Tiger King, and I'm like, but,
right. But I guess it does speak to the maybe the wealth disparity or something. Maybe that's why it shows up there. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the other film that was running for a lot of things was Waiting for Sugar Man.
Right.
I mean, really, we felt like this little family. Like, I think the best I can equate it to is we felt like a band, right? We went to Sundance and we all stayed with each other in the condo, and Jackie showed up, and we ended up going because David actually owned a resort in the area, so we got to go to the resort, and where Jackie, there should have been a Jackie spinoff. We walk into the resort and there's a whole suite there that they just keep because I guess they can. And we walk into the closet and there's rows of furs, and they're just she keeps her coats there because she knows in that area, so she doesn't have to schlep. It's just mind-blowing for the average person,
Do you know how they're doing now?
I don't. I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I'm sure that what's going on now with timeshare is not great. Yeah, not
the best time for that business.
No, not the best.
And so then after that, were you I want to produce more films, or were you no, I'm good? It was a fun experience, but I'm good.
Well, I did want to produce more films, and documentary photography, which is what I really learned I would want to be a part of. It just fit into so many different parts of what interested me. You're not going to make money making documentary film. So you really have to like figure out what kind of life you want to have. And I really wanted to have a kiddo. I think about that